And welcome back to El Podo, the Primera RFEF show, the show where we talk about all 20 games that happened in the Spanish third tier this weekend. I am your host, Nick Bell, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by Liam Bambridge, fresh from the beautiful, historic city of Salamanca. Did you have a nice weekend, Liam?
I did. My biggest sadness was thanks to those people who organised fixtures at the Primera Federacion. I didn't get a flight back on Sunday evening. I had to get one Sunday morning because by the time they'd finally told us which games were being played this weekend at what time, it was too late to get a flight that wasn't going to bankrupt me. So that was annoying. But yeah, I did get to spend 24 hours in Spain, and I did get to watch some Primera REF action, as I believe you did this weekend as well. So yeah, brilliant.
Yes, I did. Obviously, I was victim to the Segunda, ironically, fixture gods who decided to repay Malaga's fine form with a Friday night fixture against Burgos. So I missed that game as my plane landed. However, there's always a backup, Liam. My backup was to go to El Pozuelo to watch Juventud de Torremolinos against Sevilla Atletico. Obviously, a filial involved was a little bit, not wanted, but beggars can't be choosers. And I believe we're going to have a El Podo en Directo out later this week, describing both of our travails in a big bumper double show, which I think everyone will enjoy if you love all things Spanish football in the third tier. Shall we do some news? Because there's been plenty of it at the beginning of this week.
Yeah, the transfer window is nearly shut, isn't it? But there's been a heck of a lot going on as it begins to close over. But before that, some slightly surprising news, I think, coming out of Cartagena this evening.
Yes, Javi Rey, who obviously took over the reins at the Estadio Cartagena earlier this season, obviously reached the playoffs with Ponferradina last season, has been relieved of his duties at Cartagena. A bit of a strange one. I know they haven't won in their last 4 games, but they're still well within the hunt for a promotion place. 11th in the league at the moment, but again, as we've spoken many times, Grupo Dos is so close. You could be 15th one week and then 3rd the next. It's absolutely crazy. He's been sacked at Cartagena. Obviously, there's new owners in there with a new sporting director, so it kind of feels like they're putting a bit of a stamp on it, Liam. I don't know if you're getting that vibe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that take, it was taking a long time to happen, but clearly he wasn't the person that they were planning to appoint. I think probably he was appointed before they even started the process. Although I don't know. I mean, I think Anibas has been trying to rubber stamp it since the summertime. So maybe Javi Rey was the man that they chose. And whatever the truth is, we don't know. But there was talk of a rift, isn't there, between him and the club's new hierarchy. So yeah, I am a little bit surprised. I mean, they've been really, really poor away from him, haven't they, this season? And they're not terribly entertaining to watch, and they have got a pretty big budget. So yeah, I can see why they might decide to look elsewhere. But yeah, given that they are still in the shout, then yeah, it's bound to be a bit of a surprise.
Yes, it is. And in the interim, because there's a massive game on Friday against near neighbours Hercules, Raul Guillen has been named as interim manager. He's currently in charge of Cartagena B, who again, I'd be lying if I said I knew this for sure, but I'm pretty certain they're doing quite well this season. I just can't remember what level they're at, but it should be interesting nonetheless. Obviously, Arribas has got a new manager to appoint, and it'll be interesting to see whether there's a new manager bounce. Speaking of the transfer market, Liam, as you were alluding to, we have elevated people on this podcast. We've put them on pedestals and we've promoted them until the cows come home. Of all those players that we've done that to, we've lost a tantum amount of them this week, mainly to the Spanish Segunda, but some of them to above as well. And hit me, Baba, one more time. We can't use that one again this season because he's no longer playing in Primera RFEF, is he?
He's not, no. Very sad. And one of our favourite players so far this season, been brilliant for Helenas de Guecho Baba. Tenerife have recalled him and loaned him to Granada. Clearly, Tenerife are doing all right for themselves, and they put a hefty contract release clause on his head as well, so he does do well there and attracts some interest. I think it's like €3 million. So his star has risen hugely since he joined us. I think he was at Real Madrid originally, to be fair, so he has had a promising early career, and then he ended up going to Tenerife, and of course has never played for them, and is now on his second loan of the season. And let's see how it gets on at Granada. They've obviously sold Fai, the left winger, to I think somewhere in Portugal. I think it's Sporting. Lisbon or something like that. So yeah, so they had a space there, and this is a good deal for Baba, of course, in terms of proving himself at a high level, and a good deal for Tenerife, especially if he does well and they manage to sell him, or if he doesn't, he's then played Segunda. They look like they're going to Segunda next season, so he'll be ready to come back to them and be a player at that level. So yeah, a good deal for everybody apart from Port and Estegecho, who have lost a very good player.
Yes, absolutely. Very strange flex from Tenerife that they're doing so well. They don't need to keep the superstar at this level. They'll send him to a club in the league above, which again, Spanish football's good at Spanish football, isn't it, Liam? I suppose is the way we put it. Obviously, he's going to be joined by somebody else that we're a massive fan of in Primera F, and that is Izan Gonzalez. He was with Europa, the lovely shirt I'm wearing right now. Thank you, Tom Morgan Charters, for getting this for me whilst you're out there. He has been signed by Girona. Obviously, he was on loan at Europa from Uwe Cornella. He's been signed by Girona, but sent immediately out on loan to Granada as well. So Granada doing plenty of shopping in the third tier. He's a bit of a special talent as well, Liam. I know we were waxing lyrical about him, especially earlier on this season, and not just about his beautiful long hair.
No, he's a really good player, isn't he? It's quite astonishing to think that he was playing Tercera RF last season, and he's now playing Segunda in the second half of this season. But he's a tremendous player, really interesting. Really pleased that he went to Girona, because a lot of talk he was going to go to Barca, wasn't it? And then end up in their Filial, which of course they play in Segunda RF. So it just felt, I didn't like the look of that at all. But no, he's gone to Girona. I believe, interestingly, that the player buys out his own contract essentially, and presume the club that then signs him refunds him. But that's the way it works. So it looks like Gonzalez actually chosen Girona. Because there was a lot of talk about in Barcelona and couldn't do anything about it. Well, of course, they could have done. They could have just paid the clause. But I think the player has made the decision to go to Girona, and he's then been loaned out from there to Granada. So yeah, Granada, who operate on a fairly low budget at the moment, have brought in a couple of promising Primera Federacion players, and I'm very intrigued to see how they get on. Obviously, with my Segunda hat on, to see how they hopefully will thrive in what remains of the season. Another player looking to thrive in Segunda, and what a stratospheric rise for him as well. Let's not forget that Alvaro Garcia was playing in Segunda Ref football last season with Logroñés, and he's now had half a season at Merida, and he's off to Segunda as well, isn't he?
He is. Decided to join Castellón, which is, I think, is again a great move for him. And also, not unusual for Castellón to be shopping in Primera F. They've got a track record of taking players from this level and developing them. And yeah, it feels like a great fit and a great move for him. And I'm sure he'll score plenty of goals in the Spanish Segunda. And we'll both get to still watch him still, because I know that obviously you're an avid watcher, and I like to watch a bit of Spanish Segunda football as well. So yeah, we'll still get to enjoy him. How about some moves around our own division, Liam? One's of players who are staying. One move out of Ponferradina to Orense. Sergio Benito hasn't quite worked out for him in Ponferrada, has it?
No, it hasn't. No, and he's mainly, I think, or not mainly, one of the reasons why Orense are very keen to sign him is because, and some money's exchanged hands, I think, as well. I think there's certainly been a release clause placed here as well. Omar Udadi has left Orense. He's done really well from this season. He's joined Alcorcon, and now not exactly the same kind of player, but I think obviously Udadi is a forward-thinking player, as we say, at the very least, as is Benito. And yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I saw him at Real Union last year, Sergio Benito, and I thought he was a decent player. I thought it was a good signing for Ponferradina. As you say, it hasn't really worked out. And now he's going to go and see what we can do at Orense. So yeah, interesting. One in, one out sort of at Orense there. Not so much a case of one in, one out at Atlético San Luqueño, is it? It's more a case of everyone leaving, basically.
Yeah, it's a mass exodus at Atlético San Luqueño. Obviously, very closely affiliated to, I think it's the sporting director at Cádiz, isn't it? And he's basically looked to bring in some fringe players, some players promoted from Cádiz Mirandilla, which is like the B team for them, and essentially sort of announced that everyone can leave. There is a weird angle to this as well, Liam. I don't know if you'd heard about this, and players basically being told they have to buy themselves out of the contract or something to that nature. I'm not too sure if I quite got that right.
Yeah, it's Albo Numancia, who is has an ex account, and it tends to be very reliable in these kind of matters. Yeah, the suggestion, and includes Sato, of course, who was at Yaclano Deportivo last season. So sad, really, only met Sato a couple of times, but comes across as a really decent guy, and has got to move to a team in Primera Federacion, having had his days in Primera Federacion ended because Yaclano went down, and now I think he's one of the players that suggested that he is expected to buy out his contract, or they'll just hang on to him and then release him the day after the transfer window shuts, which feels very distasteful. And this is all obviously rumoured. I'm not sure. I very much hope it's not true. But yeah, listen, I mean, Atlético and Kenya have not had a good season, but they've essentially now become Cádiz Mirandilla, haven't they? And Cádiz Mirandilla this season are playing in Tercera Ref. So that tells you what their prospects are of surviving or getting out of the mess that they're in. But maybe the people in charge there were thinking, well, we've paid these players this money, and we're struggling. So let's just cut our losses, except we're going to get relegated and try and rebuild in Segunda Ref next season. But yeah, not a nice situation at all. And a few of them are still there, I think, and played against Antequera last weekend. But quite a few have gone now, and we're already looking at sort of 4 or 5 players from Cádiz Mirandilla in the first team and on the bench.
Yeah, wholesale changes. And like I say, it's I'm sure that the Atletico Kenya fans may not find it very tasteful either, because it does feel like a bit of a surrender. But we'll see coming into the season. It might be a masterstroke. Who knows? Should we talk about some football in the Grupos this weekend, Liam? Starting with Grupo Uno. There was a game on Friday night, the Estadio Romano, between Merida and Pontevedra. It finished 1-1. I think a fair result on the scale of things here, because I think both these teams, I would expect them to be in and around the playoffs come the end of the season, Liam, won't you?
Yeah, I think so. I thought Pontevedra, James, the Pontevedra fan and Huddersfield fan, of course, let's not forget that. And he wasn't at this game, I don't think. I think he was back in England. But he said he thought it was one of the poorest performances from Pontevedra all season. I tend to agree with that. I didn't think they were very good at all. I thought Merida were the better side. But yeah, I thought Pontevedra just plugged away. And of course, Benet scored fairly early on, didn't he? For Merida, nice 1-2, got in the box, finished in the corner. And they couldn't push on and get a second. I'm sure Alvaro Garcia would have helped with that process, but sadly he's gone. And Pontevedra kept plugging away there. I said they didn't play particularly well. I was a little bit disappointed Compay didn't start. And then, of course, he proved why. He should have started, in my mind.
Pops up with a 94th minute equaliser, which I think is spectacular in any away game. But an away game on Friday night under the lights at the Estadio Romano for let's not forget, a newly promoted side well within the playoff hunt is great news story. And again, I suppose it's a testament to the culture of a lot of teams that do this, even when they're not playing particularly too well. The fact that they can grind out a result like this, speaks volumes of what Ruben Dominguez is doing at Pontevedra, and why they should feel emboldened, not just with their position in the league at the moment, but their recruitment as well. I find that their January transfer window has been quite decent on the whole. They've obviously removed some troublemakers, but also brought in some extra additional reinforcements where they needed them too. So yeah, it all seems quite good from Pontevedra front. And I think from Merida's perspective, they'll take, obviously it's a bit of a disheartening factor to concede a last minute goal. But there have been times this season when Merida, especially after losing the likes of Alvaro Garcia, have capitulated early on, and they've lost games at the Estadio Romano, which they should easily be winning. So I think it's a fair result on the whole, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. Probably right. And I suppose Merida, start of the season, would they be happy drawing at home to a newly promoted side? Probably not. But as you say, the way Pontevedra have been playing in the first half of the season, and the fact that they have now lost their talismanic forward, I don't yet see a replacement for that either. Not a like for like one. But I mean, how do you replace him as top scorer in the league? It's a tough ask, isn't it? I'm sure they'll do some more business over the next few days and try and put themselves in a position where they can make light of that particular departure. But it's going to be tough for them. Your next game, next of your ones to watch, you had Grupo Uno, and you picked a game that I was at, and it was a pretty good game, to be fair. The first of the two games that, if you listen to the Bofon Directo this week, you will hear a little bit about.
Yes, an absolutely massive win here. Unionistas 5, Talavera 1 on Saturday afternoon, Liam. Tell me about this one, because I've seen the videos, I've seen the clips you sent me, I've felt the atmosphere. Is this the biggest win for Unionistas, I want to say, in their Primera RFEF history? I think it's a massive statement, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. And then it's interesting, isn't it? Because, they started this Segunda Vuelta. They went to Lugo last weekend, who hadn't lost at home all season, and beat them 3-1. And let's not forget they've just lost Gaston Vallejo, who in theory is a big player for them up front. He's gone off to Tenerife, so similar to, not quite the same impact as Alvaro at Merida, but still a very decent forward. And they've come off that, and essentially won 2 games in a row and scored 8 goals. So tremendous stuff. I think if you're really interested in this game, you probably don't want to hear me describe all the goals all over again, because I've done that on Pozo Directo. So if you're really interested in how this game panned out, then go and have a listen to that when it comes out. But yeah, I mean, it's a great place to go and watch a game. The fans, behind the goal, that the Fondo Popular are a fantastic force for the home side. They really, really help to lift the side. And what was weird about this one in a way was that it was pretty even the first half an hour, and then they just blitzed them. And he did say that. And there's obviously the beauty of being able to speak Spanish, and also thanks to the club, for giving me a press pass, I was able to go and listen to Mario Simon's interview after the game, the Unionistas coach. And he said, look, a couple of weeks ago, we got beaten 5-0 at Baracaldo, and we didn't even play that bad, and they just took every chance they got. And Talavera, he said, well, they weren't terrible tonight. We just basically were ruthless when we got our opportunities. And that was absolutely right. It was a hammering. Of course, we win a game 5-1. It was a hammering, but I didn't think Talavera were terrible. I just thought that Unionistas just, as I say, 35 minutes 0-0, 42 minutes 3-0. It's like scratching your head probably from the Talavera bench, thinking, what happened there?
Oh, absolutely. It does seem like a bit of a bombardment, doesn't it? But I think that is testament to what Mario Simone has done at Unionistas. And again, you would have felt it in the stadium on Saturday. It feels like he's driven not only a fantastic culture in the dressing room. You can see the players are fighting not just for the shirt, but for him. But also he seems very in tune with the fan base. And let's not forget, Unionistas, are somewhat of a Phoenix club, if I'm right in saying. Obviously, the previous iteration dissolved away, and this was brought back to life by the fans. Are a fan-owned club, and you've kind of got to get it right, and you've got to be in tune with them. And we saw it at sort of the back end of last season with Danny Lasser that wasn't the case, and the frustrations were boiling over. This seems a lot different, and even when they are getting beat by the likes of Baracaldo, it seems he's got maybe a bit more of a looser leash to make those kind of mistakes, as long as he can prove afterwards that he can fix them and post results like this, can't he?
It's fascinating you should say that, because again, something that I'm so glad I did go to the press conference. It was a freezing cold night, and I was quite tempted just to go back to my hotel. I thought, no, I'm going to go watch the press conference. And he said, and I hadn't picked up at all, one of these things, that you wouldn't see probably unless you knew what you were talking about. So the fifth goal was a penalty in the 96th minute, and actually the fans were chanting from Ramiro. I think it's like one of the sort of club stalwarts. I think he's 34 now, so he's been there a while. He's not a regular penalty taker. And he eventually took the penalty. I mean, he wouldn't have taken it, I'm sure, if it had been 1-1. It was 4-1. It was the last kick of the game. But Simon was asked about this, and he said, look, he said, the fans are up for, he said, and basically alluded to exactly that. The fans are so important in this club. We want them to feel that they're part of it. He didn't say, there's no way he would have taken it if it'd been 1-1. But he did allude to the fact that that's a really important part of his job, is to to remember that the fans really matter and they're really part of this. And the regular penalty taker handed it to Ramiro, and Ramiro duly slotted it down the middle, and great. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It does feel like he is popular with them, despite not being from there. He's not San Martino or anything, he was at Intercity, so down in Alicante. So yeah, but he seems to have tapped into that and realised that that's really important. And brilliant to see, a brilliant win. As I say, I think it was their biggest win ever in Primera RFEF, and that middle of the table, isn't it, in the other division, is really interesting as well, as it is in Grupo Dos, and they're not a million miles away from the playoffs. They're also not a million miles away from the bottom 5, so it needs to keep going. But certainly a very promising start to the Segunda Vuelta.
Definitely. And I'm sure Chandroni as well, from a Talavera perspective, we're thinking, what's happened there. But again, he has, been pushing the club in the right direction recently. I suppose a bit of news from a Talavera perspective. They've also got new owners as well. So again, we might see a flurry of activity in Talavera come towards the end of the transfer window. But like I say, I think he'll take this as a result and say, right, there are lessons to be learned, but let's go and watch them back and let's see what we can do better next week. Because that kind of feels like the kind of manager that he is. Should we stick with down towards the bottom in the Grupo Uno, Liam, to speak about Ourense versus Cartagena? A massive away win for Cartagena here, 1-0 at the Okutu on Sunday afternoon. It is a big result down at the bottom, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Ourense just kind of started a bit, haven't they, this month? Unfortunately, after a period when obviously they shot up from the bottom of the table and somehow managed to escape from a miserable position after the first sort of 8 or 10 games. Now they're not doing so well, and yeah, Cartagena needed this one, and Diego Gomez scored the winner in the second half, and yeah, brilliant win for them, and yeah, not a classic. Ourense, no. As we know, the pitch at Okoto has taken a real hammering this season. It's not likely to recover anytime soon, so that doesn't help. But yeah, they Ourense, as for so many of these sides, it's 5 from about 15 that could go down, isn't it? Really, unfortunately, Nick. And so yeah, they had a decent win last week, and then they lose this week, and so from pulling away from it, they're now back on the edge of it. Cartagena, there's a lot of ebbing and flowing, isn't there? And so
yeah,
you would think that both these two sides are probably likely to be, I would say, in the bottom 8, should we say, at the end of the season. So yeah, this feels like a big win for the visitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you say, Cartagena will take the wins wherever they can get them, because they've been sort of a back against the walls kind of side all season. I think Ourense, I can't not pick at or pull at the thread, I should say, of the pitch at Okutu, because a big part of their revival on that run they went on was how imperious they were at home, but that imperiousness has resulted in their pitch obviously becoming very, very bad. Obviously it alternates between the other club in Ourense as well on alternate weekends, so it's getting a lot of football played from it. And sort of looking at the highlights on this, it feels like that is a bit of a detriment to Daniel Esser's side, because he's not been able to play the football that he likes to play in it, that they were showing at the beginning of the season. And I think that's got to be a massive concern for the owners at Ourense. There's a huge flurry of transfer activity going on now to sort of like reinforce the squad to pull away from it. But ultimately, it's the pitch that needs addressing for me. And Okuto could be a fortress, but I feel like they're going to get turned over a few more times, if they can't get used to playing on that surface, Liam. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's obviously a council-owned pitch, council-owned stadium. You haven't got much control. And of course, we know that Galicia in the winter time it rains a lot. So once it's got away from you, once the pitch has deteriorated, it's almost impossible to retrieve it. And yeah, it does feel to me like Daniel Fair wants to play passing football and knock the ball about, and that surface is not going to help. So yeah, equally, I suppose other sides that come there and try and play a bit of passing football are going to struggle. So it might end up evening stuff out a little bit. But yeah, listen, I think that they'll take where they are right now, more or less, especially after the start they had. But yeah, I think they are one of those teams that are going to be constantly flirting with relegation this season, to be honest.
Looking over their shoulder a bit, aren't they, and things like that. And if you do want to go back and watch this game, it is certainly one for the purists, as they like to say, because you're not getting the same kind of level of football you saw at Unini, Cesawi, Liam. But
no, it's not a classic. But that's what happens at two teams desperate for the win on a poor surface. Lots of perspiration and not an awful lot of inspiration, to be honest. One game in Grupo Dos, because I had the 3 Grupo Dos games this week, didn't I? One game there. I didn't expect it to be as good a game as it turned out to be. I thought it'd be a really interesting game, but I didn't think it'd be a real thriller, and it certainly was. Cartagena 2, Europa 2. Not a thriller, I suppose, for poor old Senor Rey, because he's lost his job on the back of it. But Cartagena, I thought, were a better side in the opening half hour. And Flere, the Europa keeper, made a really good save to keep out an effort from Nacho, the 58-year-old fullback for Cartagena. He's not 58, but he looks 58. Pot kettle black and all that. And then Maika scored for Europa, so they went in the lead, and then Jordi Cano scored. And Maika did quite well in second half. Hasn't really scored many in fact, this might be his first goal of the season, I think, in Primera RFEF. So it'd be nice to see. I mean, Jordi Cano is 11th goal of the season, but they need other people to be scoring, don't they? And Mahikas, maybe he's up and running now. He's taken half season to get used to it, and maybe now he'll start to chip in with a few goals of his own. But So this was 2-0 at half time, and then they had an amazing chance to make it 3-0. George Andrews, the young on loan player from, I think he's on loan from Cordoba, went 1-on-1 with the Cartagena keeper, and the Cartagena keeper, from his point of view, unfortunately came out on top. But then we had a couple of interesting free agent signings this week, didn't we? And one that you know well, Nick, had a massive impact on this game.
He did. Yanis Romani, who, it's interesting to see him playing down at this level, to be fair, because he always feels to me like a certain Segunda get out of jail free card or pull emergency brake here type thing. So it's interesting to see him drop down to this level, obviously with one of the bigger clubs, and a bit of an instant impact from him. Obviously only signed 48 hours before kickoff, beat the offside trap and rounded Flere to make it 2-1. And again, I think when we look at Cartagena and what they can do, they have got a really talented squad there, and if they're only going to reinforce it with plays like this, then it's scary to think where they might be coming the end of the season. I think Javi Rey, I don't understand why they've not managed to stick by with this, because it does feel like a bit of a blip, but he is a very, very good manager for this level. And you think that if they were going to recruit players like this, that they'd like to put that trust in him. I can't see why they've sacked him.
No, it's a weird one, isn't it, really? Again, like, is he? Did he not want Romani being signed? Maybe that's it. Maybe he made a real fuss about Romani being signed, and then Romani scored 2 goals, and they went, right, okay, you clearly know what you're talking about. Maybe Romani has ended up being the beginning of the end for Ray. We can only speculate, but yeah, he got the second, and as I say, in this game as well, to make it 2-2. And Manikas back in his own box with a centre forward's header. In terms of defensively, not that sharp. Headed back towards his own goal. I think mistimed his jump, and Romani bundled it in. But Flere made a couple of. This was a week. I haven't, obviously, every week. The Primera RFEF X account has a competition for save of the weekend. This weekend there were about 4 or 5 unbelievable saves, and Flere in this game made another amazing save. The best save, I think, of all of them towards the end, to make sure that Europa left town with a point. I also quite like the handbags. There were some handbags, like a little bit with dust up in the middle of the pitch. And it also ran around Ethan Gonzalez. So Ethan Gonzalez signed off in Primera RFEF with a little bit of a scuffle. I think
why not?
On the floor, and he lost his rag a bit and started threatening people, and then everyone piled in. It was quite entertaining.
Yeah, and I think as well, we've got to look at this, from a Europa perspective. They have sort of fallen away ever so slightly. They're still up there, and I think, to be fair, they'll look at where they are at the minute and go, we never expected to be up here this time of the season. But obviously the move to Candrago is a concern. They haven't been the most imperious team away from home this season. It's something they've got to get better at if they're going to stand a chance of sort of like, dare I say, Liam, if they can't get the away form right and keep the home form that they had at Candrago, they could quite easily get, literally lassoed out of the playoff positions and pulled right towards that relegation spaces. You've got to look at Grupo Dos, and basically between, I think it's Real Murcia in 5th, they might be 6th, and then Juventud de Torremolinos in the final playoff place in 15th. There's only 4 points. Yeah, 4 points.
I think it might be 6, 5 or 6, but it's a maximum 6. I think maybe Argentinas on 32, and Juventud Torremolinos on 28. 28.
Yeah,
it's
very, isn't it?
Very, very little points, and as you say, exactly that. Europa right now sitting in the playoffs, I think, aren't they? And yeah, as you say, you lose 5 in a row, or 3 defeats, 2 draws, and all of a sudden, you could end up much nearer the bottom 5 than the top 5. So yeah, it's an incredibly tight division, and let's hope they get that sorted. I mean, they played well in this game. They certainly deserved a point, everyone, I think, from it. But you're right, they haven't been great on the road, and Candrago is a bit of an unknown quantity. They've been so good, obviously, as we know, at the Nova Sardinia. So that is a concern as well. And I really hope not, because they've done so much good work. And for those of you watching on YouTube, as you can see, they have a lovely home shirt, which we really like. Another team that probably expecting more from their season, like Cartagena, but they're doing much, much worse than Cartagena. They should be so lucky to be in Cartagena's position. Marbella, I did put this game on my ones to watch, not because I thought it would be a great game, but because I thought it was a really important game. Betis Deportivo against Marbella. It definitely wasn't a hell of a game, was it?
No, and you've got to feel at this moment in time, looking at the results and looking at the way that both T2s played, we are we are effectively staring at two of our guaranteed Segunda Ref sides for next season, aren't we? I can't see a world where either of these sides are playing well enough or showing enough intent to make up the ground which they've lost already up until that 15th final position, that we're talking about. A narrow 1-0 win from Marbella here. Again, not a classic, but, this should be an expected rollover of a team that are bottom of the league. So again, the result may flatter Marbella, Liam. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a 0-0. I mean, I think they just about deserved it. Both sides huffed and puffed. There wasn't much to show for it. We had a couple of hopeful FES penalty appeals, which predicted ending failure. We had one outstanding save from Manu Garcia in the Marbella goal right near the end. Low to his right. That was a great save. But yeah, I totally agree, Nick. I mean, Marbella win this game. They're still 8 points from safety. Betis difficulty were 11 points from safety. I think that Betis difficulty were definitely going down. I can't see Marbella, although they won this game and they'll take a little bit heart from that first win for David Cabello, the third coach of the season. But, I mean, there's something
again
very wrong
look at
going to happen. And I see this as a temporary respite rather than the beginning of a miraculous escape, to be honest.
No, and I 100% agree. And again, we've pointed the finger at Marbella to say that, on paper, their recruitment in the summer was, really, really good. However, in the reality of it, it's been quite scattergun in terms of just recruiting anyone they can that they think would fit the bill. And it's obviously led to a team cohesion that doesn't fit. I look at their January recruitment, and obviously they've moved some players out, brought some players in. It feels very much rinse and repeat, doesn't it? And that's not really what Marbella need, especially with them changing managers consistently as well. There just appears to be no plan. And, when we speak about the culture that Mario Simon has at Unionistas, or we could say about Ruben Dominguez or Ferran Beltran in other games, or, we look towards the top of this league with Ferran Costa at Sabadell, that's a big thing that's missing from Marbella here, isn't it? Then they don't have that cohesion. They don't have that team spirit. It feels like a squad of individuals all trying to do the best they can in a very, very poor environment. And it's just not inspiring. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I cannot see a way in which Marbella get themselves out of this mess unless they go on some crazy 5, 6, 7 game winning run.
Yeah, I think the trouble is they're not trying the best they can, are they, really, some of them? And that's the problem. And you say that the players that got there ought to be good enough to be at least, mid-table. Everything's mid-table in this league, isn't it, really? But they shouldn't be in the situation they're in, should they? It's pretty desperate. No. And as I say, I think it will eventually end in disappointment for Marbella fans. Tarazona 2, Hércules 2 is my third game. I mean, honestly, even obviously 2-0 and the Municipal. Yeah, I mean, I have a soft spot, as we know, for Tarazona. I was disappointed that they managed to concede a goal in first half added time and a goal in second half added time. So that was bad. But one of the goals they conceded was a bit special, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was, a fantastic goal for Mehdi Puig-Harrans. He's smashing the Galazzo for Hercules in the first half added time, as you've mentioned, just to make it 1-1. Again, he's kind of a player who's gone under the radar for us, because I can't remember when he was actually signed, Liam.
I think he's only signed 2 weeks ago. That's why he's gone under the radar. I think but it's weird how these players, the last record I could find of him is he'd been playing for, I think, a French second division side. Isn't that on Corsica, I think? But he left there last summer, and these players, I just wonder what they're doing for sort of 5 or 6 months. They've obviously hung on for a deal maybe in August and not got one. But then what do they do between September and January? I suppose they just keep themselves fit and hope, wait for the winter transfer window, maybe lower their horizons a little bit, and that's how he's come in. But what a goal this was! As you say, tremendous, 25 yards out, smashed it in the corner, and a brilliant save in this game as well by Carlos Abad. Which looked like it wasn't going to really count for anything, because then Armero made it 2-1 to Tarazona with 8 minutes to go. So it looked like they were going to get themselves over the line and get another win at their fortress. But then Fransol, silly penalty giveaway as a clumsy challenge in the box, and Fransol dispatched the penalty 2-2. But yeah, both sides 2 points above the drop zone, 4 points off the playoff. So I think they're both on 28. So that makes me think that Juan de Tolome is on 26, and then Alcatel is on 32, and as I say, Alcatel is a 5th, and Juan de Tolome is a 16th. It's absolutely insane, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and I think for Tarazona here as well, they'll take, every incremental step they'll get to reach that magic number to help them avoid relegation this season. From an Hercules perspective as well, I'm not saying the wheels have fallen off a Better Company, but it's kind of not, hitting the heights that it was. However, I think this is what we saw from Better Company at Andorra last year as well, is that, they do go through those pigs and troughs, don't they? And as long as they're not losing games, he's not unhappy, if that makes sense. And I think as much as we've praised him for getting the best out of Slavi and Fran Sol recently, I must say the transformation of Carlos Abad under Better Company as well has also been something we need to admire, because he's playing a lot more like what we expect him to do when he first signed for Hercules. Certainly playing nowhere near the levels he was for Torresilla. Again, I don't know if you agree on that, but he looks a really proper keeper, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's really decent, isn't he? Yeah, and as I said, saving this game was absolutely brilliant. I like him. I think they've again made some more signings in this window, haven't they? Escudero, a really decent player they brought in, and of course they did get Calavera. I always want to call him Talavera, but it's actually Calavera. Two really quality signings in their midfield, really, really promising for them. And in terms of squad, they've got the players now. He's got no excuse. The money's been spent. He now needs to make it happen. But you're right, yeah, peaks and troughs has occasionally been his way, and they are in a little bit of a trough at the moment, but not in a slump, are they? So, and as we've said about 4 times already on this show, as long as you don't lose too many games in a row, you're probably not going to be more than about 3 or 4 points off the playoffs with 5 games to go. The way things are going. Other results. We started, I think, on Friday night, didn't we? With Celta Fortuna 3, Zamora 3. What a game this was. I did watch this one. I don't usually watch 90 minutes worth of filial football, but I did watch this one. I'm very glad I did.
Yes, and a game played, and I love it when they do this as well, Liam, but a game played at the Ebango Baledos as well, giving the younger lads have a chance of playing in the bigger stadium. And this is an absolutely brilliant game with plenty of talking points, as we say. Celta Fortuna 2-0 up. The penalty, a bit of an awful decision, Liam. I'm like you say, you watched it. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, shocking. I posted it, I clipped it and posted it. And I mean, fair play to Zamora fans. A number of them were like, well, I'm not sure. I was like, it's not a penalty. It's not a penalty at all. It's absolute nonsense. And I mean, and the thing was that there was something going on later on in the game. I think it was 2-0 Celta Fortuna, then 3-2 Zamora. Good to see Carbonell score 2 goals, because he scored those goals last season. Was it Orense last season, Carbonell?
Yes, he was.
Did really well there. Got the move. And I wonder if he's slightly been living in Slava's shadow, because he hasn't really done it, and he got 2 in this game, and maybe that's him up and going. Kike Marker, one of our favourite players, isn't he? In Primera RFEF. He's about 35, 36 now, isn't he? Which is not obviously veteran status, but yeah, golden assist in this game. But yeah, there was a lot of talking about. I think there was a look at a ball that might have gone out of play in the build-up to I think Zamora's 3rd goal, and a lot of people complaining about it on social media after saying this ball's clearly out of play, etc., etc. And I just thought it was about time we pointed out that maybe that was controversial. Well, how about the first penalty that no one was talking about? And it seemed like a lot of people agreed with me that actually, it was a terrible decision. Most of the Zamora fans, unsurprisingly, Nick. But a few of them were like, oh, well, it could have been a penalty. And I was like, it's absolutely terrible decision. How on earth is that a penalty? Anyway, there was even something in added time, wasn't there? I mean, Zamora thought they won the game, I'm sure. Celta Fortuna went down to 10 men. You want to tell us more about what you made of that?
Yeah, well, like I say, it looked like a bit of a 50-50 in the 92nd minute, and Oscar Marcos, who obviously a very good player for Celta Fortuna, comes off with a big gash on his leg, but also a red card, as it looked to be the end of basically Celta Fortuna's chances of rescuing anything from this game. However, up pops Alvaro Martin, the big number 9, who puts in a 99th minute equaliser. Again, Friday night at Balados, 99th minute equalisers. I know we don't like filials, Liam, but there's just something nice about that, isn't there? That's drama that we enjoy here on El Pozo.
Well, against the odds, isn't it? As you say, like they're playing with 10 and the 3-2 down, and they get an equaliser. I wasn't very happy about the result, of course, but yeah, you can't do that. That's a good effort from him. And overall, Zamora would definitely take the point at the start of the game, wouldn't they? Celta Fortuna, let's not forget, a second in the table. tomorrow is still just outside the top 5. They would have been, obviously in it if they'd won that game. So they're a bit gutted, but a point away at Fortuna is not bad. I don't agree with you. I hate watching games that Filial is playing at the big stadium. I think it looks awful rattling around a massive stadium. But I get your point that it is a nice experience for the players. I just think it's a crap experience for the fans.
I think they're the only club that does it consistently, which I think is a good thing, because you never see Real Madrid Castilla playing at the Bernabeu, or even Villarreal, who are
they have done it. They don't do it this season, but they did do it when they were in Segunda. They did let them play there.
Yeah, they have to in Segunda, don't they? If I remember rightly, I think they
very possibly.
Yeah. But same with many other ones as well. But like you say, good for Zamora to go away there and get 3 goals as well. Obviously, just a shame they conceded that 99th minute equaliser. The other game involving Filials was Atleti B versus Villarreal B, 1-1. There was a scandalous offside decision that robbed the visitors an early goal for Hugo Lopez. Insult added to injury soon afterwards as Arnaud Ortiz scored his 13th goal of the season, which again we don't like to celebrate too much, but that is quite a large amount. Villarreal B had 2 more goals disallowed, but eventually Nizar El Jimili squeezed home an equaliser and added time. So we need to know really from all Filials game league.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I didn't obviously watch this game in full when it happened, and I'm like, when I'm looking at the highlights, that I want to watch them. Like, do I really want to watch these highlights? But then I see that the offside goal that never was, and I'm like, I'm glad I watched it, because I'm just outraged by this. Even though nobody listened to this show and I could give a stuff about VRLB's disallowed goal, it still matters to me. And so I felt I had to mention it. Racing Ferrol 2, Arenteiro 0. Our first win for Guillermo, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and a big result for him in a Galician derby. Obviously, they're a bit further away than some of the other Galician derbies by that factor, but still, a good chance for him to put his stamp on his new side. A good move in the right direction for Racing Ferrol. Both goals scored from Anton Escobar, who obviously, if you remember rightly, played for Cultural Leonesa last season. Good knowledge. And what it does is it puts Racing Club de Ferrol back in that top 5 picture, where I think, most of the sides that are in the Grupo Uno will be kind of resigned to accepting now that it's playoffs or nothing, because I think obviously we know Tenerife are sort of flying away with it. Arenteiro now 5 points from safety and still winless in 2026, Liam. That's quite a change around from where Jorge Zueta was just before the winter break.
Yeah, he had his new coach bounce, didn't he? And now it's all kind of gone wrong again, unfortunately for him. So that's a shame. Nobody would expect it to be anything other than the home win. It's amazing that Roma wins a game. They're back in the top 5. I know they wanted to push Tenerife in, but it's not a bad job to be taking, is it? Decent squad of players, and you probably weren't ever going to make the champions, catch the champions anyway, even the start of the season, whatever the people of Ferrol might have thought. So yeah, he's got a chance of getting a nice little. Is it his 26th job? Did you say? So he's got a chance of getting a playoff place out of this latest job. Osasuna Promesas 2, Arenas de Getxo 3. Hooray! My favourite result of the weekend, I believe. A brilliant win for the boys in the Basque Country. They looked like they'd blown it. They were 2-0 up, and then Osasuna Promesas fought back to 2-2. Mika Fabala scored a towering header at the far post. I saw a couple of great headers this weekend. One from Perimarco at the Reina Sofia in Salamanca, and this from Fabala is great as well, especially to win a game. Brilliant stuff, and then that puts some 5 points together the relegation zone in Grupo Uno and Arenas de Getxo. So great. Obviously, they've got to move, haven't they, to Fadura for their next home game, and that will be different for them as is for obviously Europa. We don't know what sort of effect that's going to have on their home form. But 5 points clear at this stage, I'll take that. And we're obviously delighted, aren't we, that Osasuna Promesas are 7 points away from escaping the relegation zone. That's the kind of statistic we like to quote at the listeners.
Yeah, sign us up for that one, absolutely. And do you know what? I find it weird, Liam, that I feel less nervous for Arenas Club going to Fadura than I do for Europa going to Candrago. I don't know what it is about that, but I just feel like under Arise that, I feel like they can still get the results they need both at home and away from home. And I think it's that away form for Rangers to get show in the last 2 months, which has seen them sort of like revive themselves, because they were slipping towards a relegation zone at one point, weren't they?
But they're in it, weren't they? They were in it for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
And also, you're quite right. At the start of the season, they couldn't get a point away from the home game, couldn't they? They were just losing every single week on the road. And you're right, the last couple of months, they've definitely picked up. They're not winning every week, of course. They've lost the odd one. But they've certainly picked up more points in the last couple of months. And as you say, gives them a great chance of staying up. And the staying up would be a massive achievement. It's a really small club. If they could stay up, having just lost Babar as well, their best player, then that would be absolutely tremendous, wouldn't it? And we're going to have a bit of a moan about next game, Nick. Sabadell nil, Alcorcon nil. What am I going to moan about, Nick?
Attendances, I'm going to say, because Sabadell going really, really well this season, top of the league, punching well above the weight and playing some glorious football at times, but less than 3,000 people in the Nova Cruz Alta. I get it, horrible weather, and there's not much shelter there, as you've seen for yourself. Not a great spectacle as far as Sabadell and Alcorcon finishing 0-0. But again, you would just think that maybe with the ticket prices they have as well, Liam, they had that ridiculous season ticket price at the start of the season, more people would be getting on the what we're going to call it, the Ferraneta. Is that what we could call it?
Well, I like that. That's a good one. Yeah, disappointing. Very disappointing. I was going to complain about you know me too well, Nick. Yeah, I mean, the weather's horrible. I know, I get it. There's nowhere to shelter in that stadium. There's very, very little cover. But put on your waterproofs and get out and watch some, for goodness sake. I didn't think it was raining. I think the weather had been terrible before it, but the actual game itself looked like it wasn't raining too badly during it, judging by the fact that I couldn't really see many people in the crowd, wearing galoshes or anything. So yeah, the pitch was quite heavy, got some surface water on it. And of course they would say, well, we didn't miss anything because it ended 0-0, but that's not the point, is you don't know that when the game kicks off. So yeah, support your team, people of Sabadell, they deserve a lot better. Antequera 2, Atlético San Luqueño 0. Not a surprise here. As Atlético San Luqueño to me are doomed, and it would seem that the people in charge think that as well. It's going to be essentially Cádiz Mirandilla from now on, isn't it, more or less? And yeah, I don't think that's the way to get themselves out of the relegation zone. Gimnastic 1, Ibiza 0.
Yes, a slight bit of relief maybe for Cristobal Pereira, because there are a lot of rumours that he might be relieved of his duties, especially if he'd lost this game. But Lady Luck clearly seems to be shining on him. Seems a bit 1 step forward, 2 steps back for Ibiza as well. 2 obviously massive wins recently, but again, going away to Nastic and losing here with the form that they're in, not great. And Ramon Juan, Liam. He'll be having absolute nightmares about this one.
I mean, if I get around to doing 5 things we like this weekend, it seems a bit harsh to put this one in, doesn't it? Because I didn't really like it. I felt a bit sorry for him. Dashes out of his goal, smashes the ball clear, he thinks, but he smashes it straight into Jaume Jardi, and ball flies into the goal from about 40 yards out. It is comedy goal of the week without a shadow of doubt. And of course, that just shows, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, Ibiza had a couple of great results, but Nastic win this game. And they move above Ibiza, and Ibiza are now only out of the bottom 5 on goal difference, but that's that ridiculously tight Grupo Dos playing its tricks again, isn't it? A team on the up, very much so, after a point at which he was under heavy scrutiny and possibly looking at also being shown the door, and they would have been on to their 4th manager of the season. Would it be? No, the 3rd. Ponferradina winning 1-0 at Guadalajara, Medinafti 3 wins in a row. Yeah, I mean, a couple of things in this game that I noticed. Boris Moltenis' first goal for Ponferradina. He was playing 3rd division French football last season, so that's interesting. Come over to Ponferrada, and he's been a regular at centre half, but hasn't scored. Ridiculous sending off, I should say. Not a cracking one at all. Terrible sending off for Gallardo late on for the home side. Guadalajara in all sorts of trouble. 7 points adrift now, sadly. We are going to go next, though, to El Pozuelo. Do you want to give us a quick rundown on what your Juventud de Torremolinos experience was like, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I'll go and listen to the El Pozuelo director if you want to get more of a feel what it was like during the 90 minutes. But I'll tell you what, this was a cracking game from start to finish. And I feel like the big takeaway for me from a Torremolinos perspective is if they can get it right there, and no one expects them to be at this level. I don't think even the owners of Torremolinos thought that either at one point. But if you can get it right, they've got a really good opportunity to capture a very captive audience with sort of like maybe the disillusioned within the Malaga factions at the minute, the local tourists and such like, because it's such a canny little stadium. this was a great game of football as well from Torremolinos too, attacking from the front foot. Really, really brilliant. Really, really intuitive what they're doing. I know they're against a poor Filial side, but they did everything perfectly. The goal from Cristobal, really nice, back onto a bit of a cushion knee assist and really tidy finish. And then Pito Camacho's goal. Is there anything better, Liam, than hearing a bullet header ricochet from the underside of the bar? That might be up there in my top 3 beautiful things about football. And it was such a towering header from the corner, and you just heard the ding go in. And I think, like say, if you go onto our social medias, you'll see the video that Luke Chambers recorded for us. Perfect. And again, a great result for Juventud Torremolinos. Yes, they stay in the relegation zone on goal difference, but again, just another win. They'll be out there in no time, and I can generally see them staying in this division next season as well if they carry on playing this way.
Yeah, certainly the home form is the key, isn't it? They're not great away from home, but they need to win a few more games and draw slightly fewer games. But yeah, brilliant stuff. I agree. In off the other side of the bar, live at the games, as it makes a cracking sound. I'm a big fan of that. Tenerife 4, Real Madrid Castilla 2. For a lot of people, this was the game of the week, and it was the game that they chose to show on Teledeporte. That's 2 weeks of Teledeporte showing a free game on Spanish open access TV, and they're showing Real Madrid Castilla both times. To be fair, the next 2 weeks they aren't showing them, so that's good news. And most people want to talk about
how many people watched it, Liam?
How many?
88,000 people watched this game. Which I actually think is quite incredible, to be fair. And I would again put my money on a lot of them being Tenerife fans.
Well, yeah, I think they got similar numbers for the first game, didn't they? Which was Real Madrid Castilla against Merida, was it? About 90,000. I think the big test will be, and of course they'll say, "We told you so." If this happens, the next 2 weeks, they say they're not showing. But I think one of them they're showing Real Murcia 1 week. So just such a shame that again, this is a really big step forward for teams for fans, I should say, in Spain. But we still can't watch it because it's blocked. So it's really annoying. But yeah, I don't want to talk about this game much because Tenerife are going to win the league and Real Madrid Castilla are Filial. But to be fair, they were tremendous. Tenerife 3-0 up after 23 minutes. Real Madrid Castilla fought really hard, got back to 3-2. And then Gaston Valles, who we mentioned earlier on, scored, I think, on his debut with a penalty in added time. Bilbao Athletic 2, Baracaldo 0. A bit of a disastrous start for Baracaldo, wasn't it? And after that, the right was a bit on the wall.
Yeah, a bit of a strange result this as well, given the form that Baracaldo has shown recently. It was on the wall for the visitors. This is a very, very local derby between, again, Athletic Club's B-side and Baracaldo. But their keeper was sent off very early doors for a challenge outside his area on the home striker. It looks a bit like a yellow to me, Liam. I think this is maybe a bit harsh, and I think when you get your goalkeeper sent off, there's just no coming back from this, is there?
No, I mean, obviously, they've got to keep on the bench, but they're down to 10, not putting that for playing goal that they used to have to. But yeah, I think it's a yellow. And they both had the goal disallowed after that, both sides. Dunya Beatty eventually put the host in front. That was it after that. And then, of course, to add insult to injury, Baracaldo had another player sent off late on. And then I think Bujan scored in injury time. So, yeah. A bit of a surprise, but let's not forget Bilbao Athletic are 4th after this. They're a good side. Unfortunately, he says through gritted teeth. And so, yeah, to be down to 10 after 10 minutes against a side that's doing well is always going to be a struggle. Real Aviles 1, Lugo 2. Amazing, Nick. No wins all season away from home till a fortnight ago. Now they've won 2 on the bounce, Lugo. And did you notice he was playing a left back in this game? Nick?
I didn't know. You'll have to actually educate me on that one. Who was the left back?
It was Diego Caballo. Back into the starting 11, played the full 90 minutes, and surprise, surprise, Lugo won. Are you listening? Take note, Senor Iglesias. Do not leave Senor Caballo out again for the rest of the season, or else the consequences will be obvious. Anyway, yeah, great result for them. 1-0 down, dreadful pitch. No disrespect to Real Aviles, of course, same sort of problem. Too many games, too much rain, really poor surface. But yeah, 1-0 down, on that very poor surface, came back to win 2-1. Balboa, I really like Balboa, Nick. I think he's another player who'll be in Segunda next season, either with Lugo or with somebody else. Really, really good player. And yeah, interesting. They both had a goal disallowed. I thought one of the things I really liked about this was the ref downgraded a red to yellow after an FES appeal, which they almost never do. I think the centre half for Real Aviles Industrial Eze, it was a yellow card challenge, and he got sent off for it. And the referee, fair play to him, said, No, okay. After checking it, I got that one wrong, which so rarely happens, doesn't it? So
Very unusual. Very unusual.
that was great, and fair play to the referee for doing that. Eldense 2, Teruel 0. Tenerife Group 2, Nick.
They are just they are finding their groove, aren't they? And I think under Barajan, they are really, really looking to get points to board. An efficient and effective performance against Teruel. No Teddy for Teruel this side as well, which you'd have thought, in being local to the area, must have been quite a nice opportunity to go stay back.
Still injured, is he?
He's still out.
Teruel are at Huito de Toroninos when I'm going there in 10 days' time. So really hoping Teddy's back for that one. I'm sure he'll be down there anyway. If not, it'd be nice to see him.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are the Tenerife group with us, not just because they are doing quite well, but also because they're pretty dull. If I'm honest, apologies if there's any Eldense fans out there listening to us. Not a great watch, but effective and fair enough.
6 points clear into the playoffs, and they've only got Atleti Bay, who are faltering, and Sabadell playing 4 above them as well. So they're looking imperious, aren't they? Like you say, getting the job done as well. Real Murcia, though,
not getting the job done the last couple of weeks.
No, Algeciras, though, they are really getting the job done. They were winners 2-0 here in the last game of the match day. Colunga Ball, as you said, is having a bit of a wobble. Manning headed the visitors in front in the first half. And then, we've spoken about goalkeepers this weekend, Liam. Round of applause for Ivan Moreno here. I think this could be some of the best.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, he's done so well. Obviously, we know about their clean sheets at home, and Ivan Moreno has been, I think, the keeper for all those Algeciras games at home that they haven't conceded at home for about 3 months. And again, a clean sheet on the road. What I liked about this as well, Nick, was that they're 1-0 up. They're with the ball back in the centre of midfield, and 5 of them just burst forward. They're winning the game 1-0 at one of the biggest clubs in Primera RFEF. In fact, I think probably the biggest club. I think Tenerife fans would accept that. And they're just trying to score a second, and they did score a second because they had 5 players in and around the box. When that ball came in from the right from a bang for, I think it was Garrido was tapping at the far post. Tremendous. And then of course Real Murcia kept plugging away, but Moreno just would not be beaten. And let's not forget that this is Javi Rey in charge of this Algeciras side. And he steered Talavera to promotion from Segunda Ref last season, but left. And let's not forget also that there's been some financial uncertainty surrounding this club, and various issues in terms of players getting paid and stuff. And yet they are in the playoffs. They're in 5th place. Quite remarkable. I mean, what a job he's done there.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible, like you say. And we do praise a lot of those managers that have come in and like with Colunga, made an instant impression. But, Javi Vasquez has just slowly built up with something, hasn't he? And he's got his team, again, probably very similar to where we spoke, elegantly about Mario Simon and co. He seems to have got that back to the wall mentality, that that team cohesion at Algeciras to say, what, if when teams come here, we're going to make it difficult at home. But I tell you what, we're going to go for the jugular, right, as well. We're not going to be a team that completely sits back and just absorbs loads of pressure. We're going to go to places and stamp our authority. And that comes from the coach and the manager, who is getting an extra 10% out of every single one of his players, Liam. And they seem to be going from strength to strength. It'll be interesting to see, where they will end up. I'd really like to get to away from Mirador as well to witness his home form. No, my luck, they'll probably go there and they'll lose the first game for a while. But, it's all part of the experience. And I can only take my hat off to him because he's done a fantastic job in very, very difficult circumstances.
Absolutely, I'd like to get them as well. It's not unfortunately available to me that weekend. I'm going the weekend after next, but certainly trying to get them before the end of the season. Games to watch in Grupo Uno this weekend for me. Zamora Racing Ferrol should be a cracker Saturday at 6:30 p.m. And I think almost immediately after that, you've got Real Avilés Industrial against Merida. I think that's 9 p.m. on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Lugo Ponferradina. Yes, we know it's not a Galician derby. We made that mistake last season. We're not going to make it again. But this is a massive game. These two teams are big, big rivals, aren't they? And this is, obviously Ponferradina on a high in the last 3. Lugo right on the verge of the playoffs. And apart from that last game against Unionistas, have been superb at home. So, that should be a cracker. I'm so much looking forward to that game. Which games have you got in the Grupo Dos? I think you've got some crackers as well, haven't you?
Oh yes, like I say, I think we're being absolutely spoilt for Primera football this weekend. In Grupo Dos as well, starting on Friday night, the derby down in the southeast, Heracles versus Cartagena, 9:15 Spanish time on Friday night. Obviously, remember Liam, Heracles took, I think it was about 3,000, maybe 4,000 fans down to Cartagena. It'll be interesting to see whether the same amount from Cartagena make the trip up north to the Jose Rico Perez for that one. But it's always an electric game here. Speaking of Algeciras, we were just spoken about them. They are at home against El Dense on Saturday afternoon at 4:00. On Sunday afternoon at 4:00 Spanish time. Can that home form stay against, as we've already called them, the Tenerife Grupo Dos, the team that is most efficient and great at grinding results out? And then last but not least, on Sunday evening again, Sabadell. Let's get some fans into that stadium. Torremolinos are in town. They are a very, very good side. But like you say, if you've got any hopes of being top of the league come the end of May, then you've got to get wins against teams like this. Sunday evening, I believe the weather should be quite nice. I hope. Get yourself down there and watch some fantastic Costa del football. Plus the Ferraneta in full steam as well, hopefully. Who knows? Who knows?
I like the Federacion. They're very good. Yeah, it should be great. And there's some great games. You get weekends like this sometimes, don't you? There's just like a whole batch of, I mean, every weekend there's some games that I want to watch. But this weekend, I could quite happily just sit down on Friday evening and probably get up again on Sunday evening, basically.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And they seemingly are getting all the filials out, games out in one week. And I think especially in Grupo Dos, they're all on Saturday. And then they're done, and then you don't have to think about them ever again. So yeah, Sunday looks like a great day for football too.
Sunday's definitely, yeah. Sunday's a day to sit around and watch it. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, we're about done, aren't we? We're slightly over time, but yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you as always about Primera Federacion, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are into the final knock-ins of the transfer window. So, like I say, keep your eye out for all those moves there, and anything else you need to find, and then do head over to social medias and such. Give us a like, give us a follow. It helps to promote the podcast. If you're listening to us on the Spanish Segunda, tell your friends. If you listen to us on Spotify, tell your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, tell your friends. It'd be great. But for now, we'll leave you to it. We'll say see you the same time next week. Hasta luego.